So, a few days have passed since the recent AMD presentation showcasing a brand new Ryzen 5000 CPUs. However, there's still one question that is on everyone's minds. Why are they so expensive? Because yes, there has been a at least somewhat moderate price increase on these CPUs compared to the Ryzen 3000 counterparts. But is it really a bad thing? I've been seeing so many people saying,
oh, it's the end of AMD, they're becoming like Intel, they're becoming the thing they sworn to defeat.
Well, in reality, truth is a bit different, because there are some pretty good reasons for these CPUs being a bit more expensive. So allow me to educate you all for the next 8 minutes or so. Firstly, and the most obvious reason is, well, they're simply, well, more advanced CPUs with more advanced technology. So of course, some kind of price increase was to be expected, and who knows how much money they spent on R&D to try and get a ridiculous 19% IPC improvement on Zen 3. However, of course, I know what some of you are gonna say, and that is that, well, of course they can be made cheaper. Just look at Nvidia, what they did with RTX 3000. True, RTX 3000 cards are way less expensive than RTX 2000 cards for way better performance. I mean, you have cards like the 3080, which greatly outperforms the 2080 Ti at around half the price. Yeah, those kind of things are possible to get both great price and great performance on the same product. So why isn't it happening here? As Jensen Huang said in that initial presentation when RTX 3000 cards were announced, sometimes just the stars line and they're able to combine both great performance and great price, like you did with the GTX 1000 series of graphics cards, and it looks like you're doing it again with the RTX 3000 series. So there is a good chance they were just not able to drop the price any further because of, you know, all the R&D and other costs that come around with a brand new series of CPUs. Now, if the price did increase like it did, but the improvements in performance were relatively low, then we will be having a completely different conversation here. But thankfully, the amount of increased performance kind of justifies the higher price here, especially since the prices aren't ridiculously high or anything. However, another thing to keep in mind is that it's kind of clear that AMD isn't done with 3rd gen Ryzen just yet, and these new CPUs are not meant as a direct replacement for Ryzen 3000, at least not yet, because remember, they said that they want to launch as many CPUs as they can on November 5th, but they're only still launching 4 SKUs. There is no Ryzen 5600, even though the Ryzen 3600 was extremely popular for its amazing priced performance. There is also no 5700X, even though the 3700X was also very popular because it was a great budget 8-core, and in fact it's a CPU I have in my PC right now. Or what about the fact that there's like no lower end budget offerings at all, apart from like maybe the 5600X arguably. There's no replacement for the 3100 and 3300X, nor are there any APUs based on Zen 3 either. So there's literally nothing there on the low end at all. So if you want anything from those price ranges, a very budget 6-core, a very budget 8-core, or maybe just, you know, the cheapest thing you can get anyway, then 3rd gen Ryzen is still your friend. 5th gen is definitely not a replacement for it, which leads me to my next point, that these are not for people who already have 3rd gen Ryzens. Because sure, it could be an absolutely great deal if you could get a Ryzen 5000 CPU for about the same price you got your Ryzen 3000 CPU, especially if you say sell it on eBay to get some money towards your purchase. However, these CPUs are just clearly not intended for people who have Ryzen 3000 CPUs. There is no node shrink at all, we're still stuck on 7nm, there's no increase in cores either, the 950X still has 16, the 900X still has 12, etc and etc. No, they're more meant like, you remember those weird XT CPUs that AMD released a while back? Well, they're kind of like that. They were just 3rd gen CPUs with slightly higher clocks for a slightly higher price. So for someone who already owned a 3rd gen chip, these made like no sense to upgrade to. They were for newcomers, for people who haven't got a 3rd gen chip yet, with probably the thought process for AMD being that the higher single thread performance would maybe lead people away from buying Intel, which is where Intel still, you know, does rather well. So of course, for those people, that wouldn't be great value for the money you're paying. But if you're someone who's still stuck on a 2nd gen Ryzen, for example, well then the price difference can be, you know, more justified. Because imagine just the chaos that AMD would cause in the lineup if they had 3rd gen CPUs and 4th gen / 5th gen CPUs or whatever at the same prices, then there would be absolute chaos and just more confusion for the customers. And that is more demonstrated by the fact that if you are a 2nd gen customer, then you probably have a 400 series motherboard. And if you have a 400 series motherboard, you can just run these brand new Ryzen 5000 CPUs with just a BIOS update. Which leads me to the next point. They will be making much money on motherboards this time around, so they have to get it elsewhere, like from CPU purchases. Because unlike with the 3rd gen launch where they promoted the X570 chipset so much, here we haven't heard anything about any new chipset. So most likely they will be just sticking to the 500 series. And especially now seeing how, the chipset number series and the Ryzen CPU series are kind of, in line. But also it explains the existence of B550 that much more. B550 has given way to some amazing budget motherboards, but it was released so late into the Ryzen 3000 life cycle that it kind of all just felt out of place. So it looks like the whole plan was that B550 was intended to be the chipset for the more, budget Ryzen 5000 owners. And hey, if you do go B550 and not X570, then of course you can use all that saved money to get yourself a Ryzen 5000 CPU over a Ryzen 3000 one. But now let's talk about something a bit different. Could they also be doing this to try to escape the perception that they are the budget choice? Because just look at the situation. They are not releasing any CPU under $300 at their main launch on November 5th. All the prices have gone up, and the X570 chipset, even though it's rather expensive, has some amazing features. So could this all be just a way to try to appear to be more high-end in the eyes of the potential customers, and of course also in the eyes of the shareholders? AMD has struggled with the reputation of being the cheap choice ever since pretty much the FX days, some would argue even before that. And now that they are pretty much caught up with Intel and far surpassed them in many areas, then now they can establish themselves as a better high-end luxury option and actually have amazing performance to back it up. And what allows them to get away with that is that, well, you can't get that performance elsewhere. I mean, look at a graphics card like a 2080 Ti. It cost a lot. Yet still people bought them. Why? Because they couldn't get that kind of performance from anyone else, especially not AMD. But then of course the poor overall sales of cards like a 2080 Ti then drove them to really drive prices down for RTX 3000. Sure, Nvidia didn't have too much competition in the RTX 2000 scene because AMD had no real alternative for customers. However, many people just still didn't buy Nvidia cards. Many people just stuck to GTX 1000 series of graphics cards instead, especially seeing how cheaply they go for nowadays. And I guess you can see where I'm going with this, because AMD pretty much has like the reverse situation going on. 3rd gen Ryzen was extremely successful, so they don't have to re-establish themselves or paint these new CPUs as just amazing value compared to the older CPUs. Well, as long as they provide extra performance, which is pretty much, the main reason you want to upgrade is for the performance, then it's kind of alright. Now, all that I just said could be wrong, It could just be that they are turning evil and they want to drive up the prices or whatever, but AMD is a smart company, and I'm certain that they have their good reasons for increasing their prices like this. And I think it just kind of shows how we've grown almost complacent. We've come to expect these low prices from AMD. So when they have the audacity to increase the prices by something like just $50, then people just have a meltdown about it. So that's just some food for thought right there. So if you want to support all the food for thought we give out on this channel, then definitely check out my Patreon down in the video description below, because even $1 a month goes a long way in helping my channel, and it allows me to make way better videos and also videos on way more interesting topics. And I have some very interesting videos coming up. Also, I'd like to thank my patrons Gavin Burns and Eric Beef for supporting this channel. Thank you ever so much. Also, I have Amazon links, which you're going to have down in the video description below as well. You can use them to buy pretty much anything on Amazon, and we get some money, you pay anything extra. You can literally buy anything. Someone literally bought a Blu-ray of Interstellar recently on there, and we got some money from that, so woohoo. Also down there's a link to my Discord if you want to talk to me or others about this or whatever else really. And also down in my Discord, I've recently started posting a schedule so you can kind of see what kind of videos are coming next. And I guess that's really it, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to subscribe, like, whatever, and I'll see you all in whatever next. Goodbye everyone, goodbye.